For something intro music, you should hire a band.
Hello,
You
ladies and
18.
gentlemen. Welcome.
I know.
Here we go.
I know some chicks who play ukulele.
As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we are live and we are here at Let's Talk. Tonight we are talking, it is four
Bow, bow,
comedians,
bow.
one stream, and we are talking about wokeness, woke, to be woke or not to be woke. We are continuing our conversation from last week. And if you haven't seen last week's episode, please go check it out. The link is in the description below. So before we get into anything, I think let's do the disclaimer first.
Oh my goodness. Oh, let's get the lawyers in right. Let's
Mucho
get the lawyers
importante.
in right.
Mucho.
Son
Do
of
we
a
need
bitch.
to write it? Do we need to write it and hold it up on a placard?
No.
Or do
We
get
just
to
need
say
to
it?
say it. We just need to say it so it's
I
on
think,
record.
I think Joe, you can maybe say it for all of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me stop this. Espírito Santo, Espírito Padre. Okay, all right. Are we good?
um, how do I say this? Like, because there's four of us. So, I mean, like, so.
Okay, easy.
You said it nicely.
I mean,
You
I
said
can.
it nicely.
Yeah. Okay. So I think it's important that we say that we are four comedians with four different perspectives, and the opinions that one may say may not necessarily reflect the opinions of others. But we are here to listen to what each other say. We don't censor. We don't necessarily, and we challenge. We just challenge each other, and we do it in a fun way. Because I guarantee you, there will be things we will disagree upon this evening. And Mikhail has promised us that he's going to piss off several people, and we just really want to just distance ourselves from this. We just want to say,
Yeah.
we
Get them
here to
lawyers.
listen. We here to listen, but you know what? If he shoots himself in the foot, fuck him. He's on his own. You know what I mean?
I also want to say that a disclaimer, I might mispronounce a couple of words. Just want to put it out there. Don't sue me.
And Banner said it perfectly. All right, so let's start off by, for those who haven't watched the previous episode. All right, we dealt with a lot, and that is very, very interesting, very insightful episode. I highly recommend you guys go watch it. But tonight we're going to talk mainly about how woke culture has infiltrated and affected arts in general. We will be focusing a lot on stand-up comedy, but we will touch on various themes and other arts as well. Now, before we continue, let's define woke. All right. So we discussed this last week, and I'm bringing it up here on the screen for this week. Obviously, there's wake, which we all know that's to wake up, become aware of. But there's also woke, which is alert to injustice in society, especially racism. An example they give here is we need to stay angry and stay woke. So, in that definition, we would like to begin the discussion of how, in our opinion, this kind of culture has evolved. Because, like I said in the last episode, it was actually a good idea. It's a nice term in its simplicity, but over the years it's been morphed and twisted, and now there's no end to it. It seems, we discussed this last time. How
all the greater good.
yes,
It's for the greater good.
and I think
There's almost something to that effect.
I think a good starting
For
point
the good of the people.
would be to talk about Showmax and their decision to cancel, because that's a bit of wokeness, right? The wokeness kind of encourages cancel culture. We discussed that last time as well.
It was a preemptive strike. I think it was a preemptive wokeness strike.
Yes, it was. So
Can you lay down what actually happened? Can you lay down what happened, and then let's talk about that.
I will do
one. As far as I understand it, is that Showmax put out a public statement. And they said they were going to pull some episodes or some movies based on, and that's the part that I'm a working man. I didn't quite actually get that part, but I heard, Showmax is pulling some old comedy that was perfectly fine 10 years ago, and that is now being tricked. because of current sensibilities.
Yes. So what I've
What
done
I-
now is I've put the article, or one of the articles. There's a lot of articles, but there is one here from IOL that's on the screen. You guys can't see it, but the viewers can. Showmax clears the air on removing Leon Schuster movies. So they've seemed to have come up with a statement recently that tries to explain why they did what they did. And it says here, we removed Leon Schuster's content as a precautionary measure, pending a review to ensure there is no racially insensitive material. That review is currently underway. So that statement should tell you everything and answer your question right there.
Leon Schuster.
Yeah. So it's a
You guys
precautionary
remember,
measure.
Can we, you guys remember Leon Schuster, right? Like, what was your first memory of Leon Schuster? Can we talk about this? Because I fucking love that motherfucker. He was funny.
Yeah.
When was the first time you heard Leon Schuster?
Yeah. I mean, he was really funny,
When was
and
that?
then I hit puberty,
What
and
was
then
what was happening?
what with puberty, or
No,
with
no. I'm sorry.
I mean, like when I was a kid, man, Leon Schuster was the business. You can't wait till like it says the next like something on my stoop, or there's something else in another part of my house. No, yeah. So it's and I mean back then, I mean I probably didn't really think about it much. We didn't really consider things like blackface and that kind of stuff because it wasn't within your thought train, was within your thought space.
Was
Like
blackface a word or a term that was
it only
within
came
the
later. It only came later.
zeitgeist?
Yeah. No, so that's why it came later. So
So
I mean, and it was almost like beyond. I mean, it was Leon took the piss out of everyone. So there wasn't like anyone that was left alone. And I think is the thing.
Do you think at that time, like when you were watching it, do you think at that time that Leon was trying to make fun of, like, in comedy, really good comedians usually they don't go for the lowest common denominator. That's one thing. And the second thing is they are the sort of fight the power. They don't punch down.
Yeah. You kind of
like
and
that's the fundamental basis of comedy. Like, general really good comedy, it's usually punching up, like powers that be, or stereotypes, or social paradigms, or
punching yourself,
ridiculous,
a little bit of self-deprecation,
self-deprecation. Like, I'm it's always trying to knock something down just as a peg, or just bring back down to reality. Now, as the essence of comedy and that ethos, and back in the day, Werner, this is your question. Knowing that now and applying that retrospectively, as we are already doing, was Leon Schuster at that time, during the time he was making all those movies and all of that, does he meet those criteria as for funny, punching up, not self-deprecation, all of that?
Yeah,
Do you think
I think absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't have a photographic memory of every movie of his that I saw. So maybe there could be a little piece here or there that people may have found a bit cringeworthy or something. But I honestly don't know. But for the most part, what I recall, it was all
good comedy. Always cringeworthy. Good comedy.
Yeah. It was generally just kind of almost South Africans having a laugh at themselves.
I was
at
told,
the expense of.
Sorry, I was told on that point. I was told by my wife that when she was watching it and being around in that time. Now, obviously, I wasn't around during apartheid and all that when he was becoming famous. But at that time, she said that she felt that his comedy united South Africa. There was an outcry from black South Africans who were upset about this decision from Showmax. So
Yes.
And anybody who's
Absolutely.
watching, by the way, I just want to address some of the comments. Nabila is watching. She says, "My best friend Mikhail hugs." Mr. Punisher says, "Hi, evening all." Charmaine asks, "Will Peter be talking about the Matrix?"
You goddamn right, Charmaine. Show me easy. I'm gonna represent. Yo, red pill, baby. Pill.
So if you guys let us know your thoughts as we're talking, don't be afraid to comment in the live chats. It's a safe space.
Let's go.
Please comment on what your thoughts are with everything
Are you
that
sure it's a safe? Are you sure it's a
It
safe
is a
space?
safe space, man.
Are you absolutely sure it's a safe space?
Yes. YouTube may not like
You
it,
do have
but
to
we
fight
like
on
it.
the call. You do have to fight on the call.
I've been very well behaved and quiet thus far.
Yeah.
So
He's
Yeah,
but
he's
you're
just
waiting. You're waiting for your.
he's just-
You have like you're like the headlining act almost right now.
I want to hear what the professor here has to say.
We'll get to that. We're moving our way through the through the topic.
yeah, but I would actually like to weigh in on. I'm very much as with Werner. I grew up with Leon Schuster. My first memory and most vivid is Panic Mechanic, which was from all these movies. It was for what he did. It was, according to me, the best one he did. And to answer Peter's question, to look at it retrospectively, firstly, I think as a child viewing it, I saw an individual make fun of other South Africans. I didn't see an individual make fun of a certain race or creed or culture. He was making fun of South Africans. And in retrospect, yes, as Werner said, there are certain things you can look at now with a more mature and a wider vocabulary mind, where you can go, okay, it's slightly cringeworthy, or I see what you're trying to do there, Leon, but the execution might not really be the same effect as it has.
Yeah, 2020 applicable. Yeah.
But what I
And
do
you have
feel,
to keep that in mind. Though.
and we have to keep that in mind. But what I do think stands the test of time is he pointed out people's hypocrisy and prejudice with humor. If he used black makeup to represent himself as, obviously, and this is where the cringeworthiness might come in, as a character of a Xhosa or a Zulu, he would do that, and he would point out the hypocrisy of an Afrikaner or English-speaking white individual, and show their hypocrisy in public. And the lovely thing is, he used humor to take that venom away. It's prejudice is a very terrible thing. We can all agree with that. But prejudice loses its bite when you've defeated it with humor. When you've taken its parts and go, you're an asshole, but it's easier to laugh at you for being an asshole. And I think
you're ridiculous. Ultimately, you are ridiculous, and ridicule, satire is just like
exactly. And I think Leon, whether the execution might have been a bit flawed, yes, but I think the point he brought across is that this is, and I don't think he always did it on purpose, but the result was good. So where, okay, you being a hypocrite, you are showing prejudice towards me in public because I now look a certain way, but I can't take you seriously because of it, because you are a character of yourself. Your behavior is a character of yourself, and we should laugh at that. Instead of fighting prejudice, for example, with venom, he showed that we can fight it with humor, which I think is a much better weapon to use. So I think he did that very well. Whether it was always on purpose or not, obviously I can't speak on his behalf, but I think that is something that people forget, and the cancel culture aren't willing to look at that because it doesn't agree with their narrative. No, he's blackface, he is bad. Yes, he might have used blackface, which isn't correct, but he pointed out people, the average Joe in society's hypocrisy and prejudice, and we were able to laugh at that. But obviously it doesn't match your narrative, so let's page over it.
here's a question for you, like sort of mini devil's advocate. Uh, do you reckon that obviously at that time he took a risk? In comedy, you take a risk. You write a joke, you push the boundaries, and you go, I'm going to go say this, and hopefully I'm going to have enough honey to deliver this bitterness, this bitter punch, this fucked up reality about myself, but I'm going to lace it and just. That's usually the earmarks of a good joke. You can laugh at it, and it's horrible, but. But there's something about it that is not me. So it goes back to intent. Intent. What was the person telling that provocative joke or that really fucked up joke? What were they intent? Were they trying to provoke a visceral response or a thought? I guess my question is, look, I've loaded the question. I'm not really a very good interview person. My question to you, Mika, do you think intent is important in a joke? God damn, how fucked up is that question? Hey, Joe, can we edit this part out?
No, it's a very valid question.
We can edit this part out.
It was very woke of you.
Oh, so woke. He's self-aware.
I think it's a loaded question, but it's not a difficult question to answer. Yes, intent is very, very important. If your intent is purely to be funny, even with a risky joke, it still should be taken into account. If you're telling a joke to be an arsehole, then obviously your intent was to be an arsehole. But if your intent was to tell a joke to make a room full of people with so many different groupings in that audience, to make them all laugh, then yes. And to bring it back to Leon Schuster, do I think his intent was to be racist? No. Do I think his intent was to show racial superiority? No. I think his intent was, let's have skit comedy and prank comedy, and let's be funny, and let's push the boundaries of how far we're willing to push. How far are we willing to push a person's temper until they snap for the joke? And I think the byproduct of it was him pointing out that difficult character traits in society can be dealt with humor instead of anger. But I don't think.
How long does it take before Jimmy Abbott claps you? You know.
Oh shit!
Exactly. How long does it take for Steve Hofmeyr to moody with a fist? Millennium Menace, go watch it. Millennium Menace.
I got two questions for you guys. Joe, I'm going to shut up after this. Question number one.
No, go ahead.
Which one has a fish tank? And second question.
I have the fish tank.
Someone. Oh, you son of a bitch! I think I heard your fish farting. Can a racist be funny? The second question. Can a racist be funny? Go. White guys, go.
White guys.
That's actually
like we have the fucking cornered the market on racism.
Hey! You guys got that white supremacy. You guys got that privilege. I mean, talk to your HQ. Or what the fuck?
Let me just make a call and just quickly hear.
Yeah, I just want to quickly. Yeah, I'm gonna quickly drop the lines.
Ja meneer, hulle wil weet asseblief hierso
Wait a minute, colonizer.
Is it binne ons
that colonizer.
Mag ons nie snaak nie, ons mag nie. Oh, sorry, racists apparently are not that funny straight from HQ. We got it delivered in Afrikaans too, just so it's official.
No, Werner beat me to it. I was planning on phoning the Afrikaner Broederbond to find out if they would extend my loan on my white monopoly capital, but apparently I couldn't get through.
What's the acronym? What's the acronym for that organization? The Afrikaner what?
They don't actually have an acronym. It's just the Afrikaner.
Fuck, no wonder they don't trend on Twitter. Jesus.
You don't shorten our shit, man. You don't shorten our shit. You know, it's like, we will force you to say the whole 15 minutes. What's the acronym for? You will say Afrikaner, Captain. You'll not say You'll say Afrikaner. Huh?
Oh my goodness! It should be
See,
the name of your next.
You know what's
man.
really
You
messed
don't
up?
shorten out shit.
You know what's really messed up is that some woke person is probably going to stumble on this one day and be like, "Oh my word! Look at all these racists. What is this black guy and this Mexican guy doing talking to white supremacists?" And the thing is,
don't exclude
Conversion.
Kaneki.
Conversion.
We're busy with online intervention programs. Colin myself are recovering racists, and we like guidance from.
This is Felicia, but for comedians. We're making a difference.
All right, so I think, in my opinion, right, and as someone who isn't from South Africa, like I said, I have seen some of Schuster's films and pranks, and I thought they were hilarious. As someone who watched them maybe the first year that I was here, I didn't get all of the jokes because I didn't understand South African culture yet. Just like when I watched Barry Hilton for the first time, I think I'd been here for 3 months. I didn't understand his jokes because they're very cultural. They're like
you just don't understand Kempton Park because that's pretty much.
a similar story. We'll continue, Joe.
Yeah. So once I experienced the South African culture and I watched his movies again, I was like, wow, this is actually really funny because some of the stuff he's bringing to the forefront, it's stereotypical, some of it, but also that one about Mama Jack, I felt like that was, I wasn't offended by it at all, but I felt like it was a ripoff of Robin Williams' movie, Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh,
Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah,
when he wore blackface.
No.
In that, with that being said, right, and this is unfortunately, I think is a bit of a sad part of South African culture is that we often copy what other countries do. I mean, even you can look at Afrikaans music, right? A lot of the what you call the what I would call the bubblegum Afrikaans music, you know, it's this sort of time a dozen kind of Afrikaans tracks. They actually get these tracks.
Mean pop music?
They come from Amsterdam.
You mean pop music with Afrikaans lyrics?
Yeah, they basically buy these tracks from Amsterdam or from other places, and they just convert it. You know, and it's quite blatant in some of them, right? So, and I'm not saying that's true for all South African musicians or artists or whatever the case is, but I'm saying that does happen. So I'm pretty sure Schuster would have been influenced by what was popular overseas, because you know people and you'll even see this in Hollywood. You'll often see similar themed movies coming out within the same sort of 12-month period of each other. I mean, if you take like Deep Impact and what was the other fucking like Armageddon, it's like basically the same fucking movie, right? Like I would often confuse the fucking two with each other because the plot lines are so similar.
And then you can throw in the core for good measure.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hold on, before you hold that question, I just want to say this because Richard Tate, who's actually someone I'm going to be interviewing tomorrow evening about gym and fitness during the pandemic. So tune into that. Thank you for watching, Richard. He says here, and I think this is quite funny, I suppose being funny is a privilege. So white supremacist racists must be funny. I'm applying woke maths.
Oh my god! Checkmate! Oh!
Are we officially opening up a new line of study at the University of Wokeness?
Yeah.
Yep. It sounds. But I think that calculator he has, you're only allowed to use your left hand when using it. Because if you use your right hand, it stops working.
Oh, I'm gonna drink to that motherfucker. I got a question for you guys. I got a question real quick. It seems to me that there's a bit of a battle with what's historically important or relevant versus what's fashionable now. I think that was a sloppy way to get into this topic. But my question to you, both of you, or all of you, is this: what do you think that people are doing now that in 10 years, much like the 10-year podcasts, the young Mexicans of the future in 10 years are going to be talking about what are we going to be apologizing and mea culpaing about now that we are doing now in 10 years? Well, because it seems like that's kind of what happens.
Yes, I'll give my opinion on that. I don't think there's going to be an end to it, to be quite honest. I think that at the rate we're going to be apologizing for every insult or whatever it is that we've said that has offended someone, whether it be sex, race, gender, culture, stereotypes. At the moment, games are being called into question. Everything right now is being looked at through a lens where and here's the thing: if you look for it, you're going to find it. And I don't agree with this idea that we must take offense when none was taken in the first place. 10 years ago, it was a very, 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 very different time, not just in South Africa, but in the world. Movements were happening, things were happening. Humans were fighting for different movements, and different things were going on. And you know what? 10 years from now, the same thing is going to happen. We're going to evolve. The question I think that should be asked is: are we going to actually progress? Like some of these people have been saying, like we're progressive. Because in my opinion, all we're doing is we're regressing. That's what we're doing. We're not progressing at all. And people need to understand that art is subjective. It will always be subjective, whether it's a painting, stand-up comedy, a movie, whatever, a poster, a cartoon. All of it subjective. And there's some really weird...
my first one-man show was called Devolution. It was a play on the word of
evolution. I remember that. That was hilarious.
Yeah, and it was literally just a commentary on what was happening at the time in the world. It was just you could literally see people just getting dumber by the day. And it's not their fault. It's a purposely driven agenda, as far as I'm concerned. Is that because we're seeing schools arguably being, the pass marks being absolutely ridiculously low. The quality of the kids that we get out of high school, they're barely literate. They're fortunate if they can structure a sentence properly without having to use shortened lingo. So I'm not saying there isn't a place for sort of text type messaging, but when you're working in a professional environment, that's just not how people work.
Yeah.
And if you can't read and write, you're just not employable.
Yeah.
And if you can't read and write, you're not going to. Yeah.
Well, let's let Mikhail give his opinion on your question.
Well,
firstly, I think as long as people that subscribe to woke culture and cancel culture, as long as they cheapen honest and genuine social movements into simple buzzwords and rhetoric, I think damage will keep on being done. I think a cause such as BLM, the rights for transgender people, for homosexual people, I think these are things that we are supposed to show solidarity to. That's the whole point originally of being woke, to be awoken to someone else's problems and showing solidarity. But it's come to the point, even in the past 3 months of BLM, which I think is a topic that we need to discuss and we need to solve, it's become cheapened. We've gone from a point where a social movement has become cheapened within 2-3 years to in a couple of months, because it's so much easier to hashtag it and buzzword it.
Yeah.
And the people that buzzword...
and on that, one of the originating founders, one of the originating founders says exactly the same thing. He says it's been hijacked by a leftist movement that's been politicized, and that's why he's not involved with it anymore.
And they cheapen the people that were before them. If you let's take a longer cause, struggle, whatever title you want to give it. Let's take feminism. If you look at what feminists fought for in the late 19th century up until the 1960s and 70s, what they truly fought for, what they stood for, and what fourth wave feminists are doing now, you are cheapening the hard work and the suffering and the trauma and the distress the people before you went through to be able to give you the platform you are doing now. By cheapening BLM in another 6 months to a year, that trauma, not only that George Floyd had to go through, but that what the people that saw it went through, you've cheapened into buzzwords and hashtags. They did not go through what they went through. They did not stand for what they stood, so that you can make it the special of the day. You're doing it by acting the way, by knee-jerking everything. You're taking away what people actually fought for. And that's not right. That's a disgrace to the memory and the legacy. So as long as people keep on doing that, it will keep on going. I believe that if you believe in something strong, if there's an immoral right in the world and you can show solidarity for it, not be offended on someone else's behalf because that's fucking stupid, but show solidarity with someone. If I can see that socially my friends of color have gone through greater injustice than I have, and I have the opportunity to put a light on it, yes, I should do that, but not cheapen it into, okay, look at how many hashtags I've put on Twitter. You are completely disregarding the emotional distress and fight that person had to go through, and that's unfair. So I hope that as people that start movements and hashtag things in the early 20s and late teens, within a couple of years realize that what they stood for was right, but their execution was absolutely terrible. And not only right the wrongs of their terrible execution, but actually fight correctly for what needs to be fought for.
Man, I fucking love that. Yo, that's the best review of my stand-up comedy ever. The stood for was right, but the execution was terrible. I had to make fun of myself. Oh, Kaneki, you are here.
But that's what comics do. They make everything about themselves, don't they?
Yep.
Self-centered.
You 100% right, dude. I think that should be the prevailing voice. I think.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I flip, dude. I agree with you 100%. And I think a lot of people feel the way you do, Mikhail, and I think fuck it, I couldn't have said it better. I think one of the things
you
that
could have. It would have just been in an American accent, which is arguably better.
Yes, but once again,
can I play devil's advocate?
But the problem is it will be coming from an American education system, so I don't know really if it would have been put the same way, but it's fine.
Shot fired. Peter, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw sort of a steelman ethos. Your interlocutor, someone who disagrees with you, their point of view, how would you advocate for their point of view? Do you understand their point of view? Because being woke is something positive, right? Isn't it?
It should be.
Being someone who wants to see progress, who wants to see fairness, who wants to see equality, and who is seeing inequality.
So decent. So decent.
Is what you're Mika, is what you're saying are you advocating for the disacknowledgement of unfairness? Because the woke is usually tied to fighting unfairness, and if you're anti-woke or viewed as anti-woke or How would you? I'm trying to be a steel man. I'm trying to be the straw man. I'm what straw man argument. Just trying to argue for someone who is
The opposition.
no. Well, what would you say? What would you say to someone who says that?
I'm going to be honest.
I should
I think every single social movement of value would be better off if we could take away the human element. Because unfortunately, and people disagree with me, I think humans are inherently stupid and ignorant, and we love to knee jerk.
Speak for yourself, buddy. Did I say, not everybody's opinions are the same. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
once again, not everyone's opinions are the same. I think the movements that sprout from human desperation are usually also destroyed by humans' over-enthusiasm about that movement. And that's a very sad thing, that you've taken a drive and a passion, and you've turned, and a lot of woke and cancel culture people, instead of enhancing and using that passion and energy constructively, they become essentially Red Bull crazed people, where I need to keep on going and do this and do that and be there and be here. And they start missing the point.
Mentality, though. That's really just peer pressure more than anything else. I mean, when you see it in high schools, it's like I said, people that buckle to peer pressure is people that haven't really progressed beyond sort of the sort of teenage level intellect, right? Because they're unable to withstand the criticism and swimming against the stream. Now, fortunately, when I was in school, I wasn't part of the cool club. I was always, so peer pressure was never a thing for me. I never had a problem with it. In fact, I enjoyed disagreeing with people because it made it some form of debate, and debate is a conversation.
Yep.
Is that a condemnation? Like, people who think that way, or sort of very adolescents. Is that a condemnation? Because fair enough. But here's the thing. What would you say to someone who feels fragile and offended that you said that?
Oh, they need to grow up.
My very mode of thinking is adolescent. Like, I've got to grow up. What would you say to a 20-year-old that thinks that says that to you?
First question I ask, what is your preferred gender pronouns, right? And I would say, now put on your big girl or boy panties and fucking grow up. You're a child, read a few books, get educated, get some purpose in your life, fucking do something, and stop being such a, I think a lot of the shit stems from is that people don't have real problems in life anymore, and then now people are starting to be facing some real fucking problems. People are without jobs. They, now all of a sudden people need to figure out how the fuck do I become useful to society that largely doesn't fucking need me.
So you are differentiating between people with like absolute destitute people versus people who are, they are okay, but they just have
of course. I mean, they are vulnerable people. I mean,
they want to fight abstract racism.
You'd have to be an absolute moron to deny that there are people that are vulnerable and exposed, and but it's very easy to identify those kind of people, and when charity is not legislated, when charity isn't something that is forced upon you, people tend to be quite charitable, right? They tend to want to look out for one another, right? And it's before these big NGOs and government supports and social systems existed, there were just people that would take care of the needy. It's just what it was. There wasn't a thing of like, because now there's this idea, there's this big government that's going to take care of everyone else, so I don't have to worry. So, but yeah, there's a distinction between people that just don't grow up, and they are, for the most part, I would call mostly your middle class, lower LSM type people, because
Use the word. Use the word.
well,
Bougie. Bougie. Bougie bitches.
well, look, I mean, you don't have to be a
Bougie
drug
ass
abuser,
bitches.
drunk kind of person to
If you
be
can afford
childish.
coffee, you're not
You know,
oppressed.
yeah. Look, I mean, there's many reasons why I think people don't evolve mentally beyond certain places. And there are many ways I think that people can address that. But I think that is for the most part the biggest problem. People just don't. Most people aren't grown-ups. You see 33-year-olds running around, and you basically realize these are 14-year-olds that's been able to get credit and buy shit and have kids.
Hey, Bernard, I appreciate that, but please do not criticize me like that. I do not.
Hey, if the shoe fits, the shoe fits.
Can I also say something?
Tone it down.
On the question that Peter had about like how do we maybe approach, was it your question was like how do we approach people or
Yeah. What would be like, for someone who truly believes in this, wokeness, when you go to the purest form of it, they want to do good, but how do you mitigate and how do you approach someone who's sort of wants to do that, but doesn't necessarily know that if you do that hard enough, you become the villain?
I think I think
Change the question.
I think just like how society has labeled everyone. So you're either right, centrist, left. You're a liberal. You're a conservative. You're a fascist. You're this. You're that. There's so many labels, and there's so many different ways that we can define people, and there are so many assumptions as well. So, for example, if common one, if you're a Trump supporter, then that means you are right wing, racist, white supremacist, bullshit, homophobe. If you are if you like Hitler, then or if you are like, I'm not that a lot of people like Hitler, but I'm just saying.
If you like Hitler,
God damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I'm not maybe a bad example, but
these YouTube videos are
yeah.
shitty lately.
maybe a bad example, but if you like ANC or if you like BLF or if you like EFF or if you like any of this, the assumptions are made about people, and I think the best way to combat, and I'm going to call it for what it is, ignorance, is to have communication. A lot of the times with woke people, there are different levels of wokeness, if I can put it that way. So they're the ones that understand it and really try and be good with it and try and like be aware of, okay, if I do this, then that means I was a bit racist or whatever. But they don't go too far with it. They're still like level-headed. Then you get the ones that are like extreme. Those are the ones that have fuck all to do all day and just look for whatever is racist in the world and think that they can educate people on what is racist and what is not. So there's like levels to it, I think. And I think that like any
The social police.
Yes, like any other extremist, whether it's a white extremist, Islamic extremist, a woke extremist, whatever you want to call them, extremists,
pineapple on pizza extremists.
extremists are very difficult to sway their way of thinking because they believe it beyond a shadow of a doubt. Whatever it is their ideology is, it is super hard for them to be swayed otherwise. Let's take ISIS, for example. That is a very radical, extreme organization.
Yeah.
They will never, ever say, you know what, Western society,
give up.
we forgive you.
Maybe they would. If more of them find out what and I read this, I don't know how true it is that Duterte, President Duterte of the Philippines, apparently this guy has a thing for eating ISIS terrorists alive.
That's extreme.
What?
And I read the story. Man, this shit is.
What part of
That's cannibalism, though.
Read that from?
No, dude, go look at he apparently made some things about wanting to basically fillet and chow ISIS terrorists alive. But dude,
Yeah,
I
it's on
tell
the
you,
dark web. It's right over there.
no, it was on like the fucking Guardian or something like that. I shit you not. I've got to go find an article. It blew my mind. I was just like, no, can't be. No, I know this is a bit extreme, but this is the same guy
Yeah.
that
A
had
little
sort of
bit.
open season on fucking drug dealers, and whether it was like, and people were just fucking executed in the street, so. And apparently his view is that the only way to let these terrorists know that you mean business is to go fucking a next level up from the shit that they do, because
Well,
they do
You're
some
gonna
pretty not.
kebab another terrorist butt cheek
I mean, okay,
in
so
order for you.
that
I
is
am.
extreme in my opinion. But to
It
some
solves a problem.
to some degree,
Yeah, it kind of does, doesn't
It solves a problem.
to some,
I
but
mean,
again,
I mean,
this
if
is
I was an ISIS recruit, I'd be like,
Okay,
this
so
guy Charles.
I'm gonna turn it around now. This is the whole argument of the woke, because a woke person be like, "This is horrible. We shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be eating people. It's wrong to do that." So there's a pendulum that seems to happen in human society and in human nature, where we in history will go one way, and then we go a bit too far that way, and then we slowly adjust ourselves. And right now, I think we're experiencing that pendulum going to that far, maybe left in this case, I don't know.
Wait.
And
We're at the
your
eating
left or my
terrorists.
your left or my right, because
whatever your left is,
through
man.
through Twitter and social media, it's a little different, because if it's your left, it's probably my right. I mean, if Mikhail
Semantics.
says something,
You're
it's
left,
probably
man.
like way extreme left. I mean, right? I don't know. What the fuck?
But this is my point.
Left or right?
We come up with these
Where on
labels that are, in my opinion, designed to divide us even more. If you're not on the left, then you're right. There is no center. There is no. If you're like an extreme woke guy.
Serious question, though.
Yeah.
Serious question. What left or right do you think is eating terrorists? Is it left leaning or is it right leaning? I mean, I just I really need to kind of.
I think
it's right.
I think cooking in general is its own thing and doesn't care if you use the left hand to spice or the right hand to spice, as long as you spice.
What direction is
It's a very
boiling?
centrist thing to say.
If you flip the man bacon with the pan in your right hand and you scramble the man eggs with your left, as long as the dish is good and the terrorist has been eaten, I don't think cooking cares.
It's a rotisserie. They did a rotisserie.
All right,
Yeah, but those things are, most of those rotisseries, if it's usually meat over 15 kgs, you don't actually use your arm to rotisserie meat. You would use it as it's a machine. And the machine can't be left or right. It's just doing its job. It's just cooking a terrorist.
It's a centrist. So what you're saying, eating terrorist is centrist.
No.
Okay.
It's basically, yes, it's moderate. To eat a terrorist is moderate.
Eating a terrorist is unless they're well done. Then it's not moderate.
Yeah, but then we shout at the chef because he fucked up the meat, and I'm sorry. So
I have comments coming in that are really funny. Hold on. So Undying Brush says vegans are probably pissed off right now.
Oh shit!
everyone hates vegans.
Spiker Hunt says left and right is.
Look, I mean, as a mostly plant-based eater, so I mean, I'm not strictly vegan, and I don't like the word vegan because it sounds very militant as well. So I prefer, so I use plant-based.
We've offended
is all wrong.
I can get on board. I can get on board with vegan terrorists. You know what I mean? I can totally, spice it right. It's, I mean, if it ends the raping of kids, the raping and killing of kids, I say let's fucking eat them. You know what I mean?
Some Jimmy sauce and aromat.
I can't believe we're having a conversation about eating.
Don't eat the brains, though. Don't eat the brains. You don't want kuru. You do not want kuru. So
no, you don't.
Yeah. So
I do want to mention this because I think it's an important comment, and we can weigh in. Left is about achieving the utopia dreamt by the French Revolution. Right is literally everything else. That was from Morobane, who commented that. I think. What do you guys think of that?
Morobane, égalité, Equality. Yeah. That's my shit. Liberty for the individual. Freedom, man. Fucking absolute freedom. That's where I'm with. That's kind of where I lie. But everything else is a decision. I did want to ask, in terms of this cancel and woke culture, it's a culture war, and
Yeah,
you know,
it is.
in a war, the propaganda machine is huge. You got to win hearts and minds. Even in recent history, we've had situations where, you kind of have to convince the people on the ground, the mom and pops, the you and me, the Werner Wiebers, who are going to be deciding which comedian am I going to throw my 10 rand Netflix shit at, And so hearts and minds, ideas, bullets, thing of a past. And when it comes down to bullets, none of us are winning.
Yes.
Maybe me, I can run, but none of you guys are all dead. So in hearts and minds, ideas, how do you convince someone who is about to be entrenched, not quite militarized, not quite woke, but we're talking about someone who is in earnest trying to do something good, trying to get meaning, but they do not understand the minutiae and nuance of this. How do you talk to them? How do you tell them, hey, Leon Schuster is actually funny. He is not Eugene Branch. There's a difference. Go.
I'm gonna have to get my soapbox out for this one.
Oh my God!
Because we've brought it back to the arts, and I was hoping for that. The problem I have is
Here we go.
I want to see people that are woke, that are for cancel culture, and to the extreme end, those people we've discussed that have missed the whole point of what it should be, and unfortunately the majority of the rhetoric we come across on a daily basis. I want them to match their expectations to their actions and the other way around. So let's take Leon Schuster and the Showmax thing. And without naming names, I think it's been regurgitated enough. But Joe, if you don't mind, the thing you're going through is a very, very valid example.
Yeah.
So without going into too much detail and obviously being a detrimental to what's going on, the problem I have is you have an individual or a group of individuals that shout cancel culture. They have heard something that they don't agree with. And if the subject of their loudness gets punished, they're fine with it. But they're not firstly willing to look at the bigger picture involved. So Leon Schuster has admitted many years ago that he's going to slow down the rate at which he does movies and whatnot because he's no longer in a physical position to go to do the things he did.
He doesn't want to be
So, man, he can't moonwalk anymore.
So
he can't take a slap across an old lady's face anymore. I'm sorry.
So he's in
this
one
is
of
a
those.
Comedy show. Like a bit of comedy.
So he's in one of those last final positions where he could obviously get some financial endorsement from Showmax for running his things. And that's fine. We all want to put food on the table. But by having your knee-jerk reaction, you've not only punished Leon Schuster financially. The camera crews, the production crews, the makeup crews, all those other people that would have benefited are no longer picking up a check because you took a stand. And I have a problem with you and a woke person willing to sacrifice the salary of someone to make a point. But what I want to see is if you really stand for what you do, I want to see you sacrifice your salary to make your stand that you feel so strongly about. I want you to go home and look into your partner's eyes. And if you have children, look into your children's eyes and go, during the economic situation we're going through, I'm not going to put food on the table for the next 6 months to 2 years because daddy or mommy is proving a point. And now the rest of you have to deal with it. Now, by extension, now the argument is, yes, but the people that were on Leon Schuster's production crews or in Joe's case, the comedians that he would have brought on to this show that would have financially have benefited from it should have known better. Okay, so you're going to tell someone that could possibly put some food on the table for their families, I'm not going to take this job. I'm not going to put food on the table because I didn't agree with someone. Now, that is a very difficult thing. And by extension, these people that are so woke and so cancel culture minded aren't willing to think that there could have been a possibility that someone in that production crew or someone on that comedy show that disagreed with Leon Schuster or Joe could have been afforded the opportunity in a healthy and educated manner to change that person's opinion on actions. So not only have you taken away the salary of more than the individual you are trying to bring justice to, you've taken away the opportunity from someone that could have made a difference in that environment. But obviously it doesn't suit your narrative to think that way. And I'm sorry, how fucking dare you decide on behalf of someone else whether they were going to do the right thing or not? You'll be the first people to stand in your soapbox and shout fascism until you blue in the face. But your actions is very much the same thing. You are deciding on behalf of other people. You are making detrimental decisions on behalf of not the individual, but the group, because it suits you, because you are now offended, or you are now offended on someone else's behalf. Yes, cry outrage when it is necessary. But think of the bigger picture. Think of everyone else you could be possibly harming by your actions, because we are all raised with the simple concept that every action has an equal reaction to what we do. And they don't think that far. And that's painful. I would rather, for example, in Joe's case, Joe said a thing and people lost their shit. So let's cancel Joe and cancel the opportunity for other comedians that are full-time comedians that aren't earning a living during lockdown to put food on their tables because we need to prove a point. And as I said earlier, you didn't think as far going, possibly, let's say you or I or Vanna or Peter on Joe's show, we didn't agree with Joe. We would have had an opportunity. We would have had a whole afternoon of shooting to just debate with Joe and possibly. No, I'm just using this on, but this is not. I'm not talking him as an individual. I'm using his situation to prove a point. I think it would have been a lot more productive if after the show, Joe could have left as an individual and gone, okay, maybe my opinion's been changed because someone was afforded the opportunity to speak to me. But no, let's take that opportunity away because it suits my narrative.
Yeah.
Because I'm offended. And now to bring it
forward. It's an age-old thing, though. It's an age-old thing. This is all this time. I mean, classic example is Luke Skywalker blowing up the Death Star. Why blow up the whole Death Star? What about the janitor? What about the security guys just working the door? It's like nobody thinks about that kind of shit. Here comes this fucking pretty little fuckface and blows up the whole thing. And eventually, he just kind of has to fight. He has to fight fucking the other fuckity fuck anyways, So,
Well, I think the problem with your example there, Venner, is that it was established that the Death Star and Darth Vader were the enemies and evil. In the situations that Mikhail is talking about, I am not evil.
Do you think the cleaner was evil, or maybe he was just subjugated into doing a shitty job that he didn't really want to do? Did he sign up?
Mikhail made a great point. You made a great point. I think you crystallized it. I was thinking it. No, I don't. No, let me not say that. You brought up something that I did not even think about, dude. But it was by proxy. The consequence of one's own ethical and moral decisions. If you are in industry, you have dependencies. If you got families that depend on you, I am a big name, and my art that I've been doing and my thing that I've been doing for years and supporting a production. Say you have a production, you want to play a production. and it's been supporting entire. It's been an entire industry. Everybody bought in monetarily. Now you want to go back and go, okay, I've kind of changed my position ethically, morally, or I've reversed my fill the gap here. If you
That's what Showmax has done. They basically virtue signaling. And,
okay, cool.
And this is why they've taken this bit of a backtrack, because it backfired. Backfired badly.
Okay. So I suppose my question to you, like, you really nailed this on an artist individual level. But is your message more directed to the corporation or the artists? Because the corporation then, like how do you?
Thing is, if it's an artist, let's
an
say
individual artist.
No. Let's
versus,
say you do.
Yes.
It should be neither, though.
It should be neither. I think all parties, whether corporate or individual, whether the artist, the production house, or the consumer, all need to be held accountable for their actions. We all need to do. If I break the law and someone in a company who's a CEO breaks the law, in theory, we should both be brought to trial in the same manner. And if I regress morally in society and you regress morally in society, we should both be measured with the same yardstick. So, and this is my next thing. Now I'm hitting more closer to home because we all are comedians, whether by hobby or by profession. We are comedians on this panel tonight.
Or by accident, in Joe's instance. What's happening? Are we doing jokes here? What's happening?
The thing that I have found very interesting about our small comedy community in the province where we are is, firstly, I'm going to make this statement outright. I think many comedians that are extreme with regards to being woke and cancel culture do not have the necessary education, whether it be formal or informal, to actually discuss politics and social issues. I don't think they do.
I agree with that statement.
It's above your pay grade. And secondly, what I find... No, I don't have a...
Freedom of speech.
You know a bomb has been dropped when Joe reaches for his McDonald's super cup and he goes... I don't know how...
I will stand by this. This is not a case of intellect. We've all come across very, very smart individuals that do comedy. This is a case of education and retrospection. And I think a lot of comedians have not done enough of it to comment on political and social issues. Those that are to the very far extremes of cancel culture and wokeness. And they do more damage to the arts than they do good. What I discussed earlier about disgracing steps that people did for a movement by cheapening it, I think a lot of comedians that aren't willing to educate themselves are doing the same thing, but they're affecting our art by doing that. And another problem I have is these comedians don't have a problem, and this is where the hypocrisy is deep. They don't have a problem making a joke and offending a heckler, but at the same time, they don't have a problem being offended on someone else's behalf. You can't be on both sides of the fence. If you don't have a problem telling a joke that is possibly offensive, and then at the same time being offended on someone's behalf, you can't do that. You can't have both ways. If you want to take a stand, then take the bloody stand. Not change the narrative because the audience will like it and I can get more gigs that way.
I guess the phrase is this the hill you're going to die on? The operative word is die on.
The problem is they move between hills. Whichever hill at that moment has the most sunshine, they will go die on that.
Sounds like marketing.
But that's true for most
Oh, Dr.
parts.
Evil over there.
Yeah, what the fuck, Banner?
That is true for most.
This podcast was meant for 4 humans. Look at this. I didn't sign up.
You do realize that cats are in control of the universe, right? I literally have no say over what's happening right now. I am not in control of my actions. What? Hey, what?
So that's my problem. These comedians are taking stands, but it's individualistic. It's not for the group, and I will stand by it. If you want to discuss comedy on stage, if you want to discuss politics on stage, I think we all qualify, because it's very easy to make a simple joke about politics. If you want to discuss as a comedian politics and social issues outside of the stage, then I'm sorry, educate your fucking self or keep quiet.
I have something to add to that.
Well, you can't say people to keep quiet. There's a freedom of speech. And this is why I come back to democracy is arguably a failed concept where you don't have high levels of education.
That is true. Now, I want to add to this as well. I agree with what Mikhail's saying, but I also, like when you said now, oh, well, shut the fuck up. I wrote an article, right, about, and it's kind of my response to this whole cancel culture and how it's infecting the arts and stuff like that. If you guys want to read it, it's in the description below. Please go check it out. And in that article, I state how some of these ideas that are going around, some of these opinions that are going around, like, black accent and, certain races can't do accents because... especially whites, they can't do accents or because they colonized. So the colonizer cannot make fun of the people that they colonized because it's offensive somehow, some way. This is all an example of things that was never an issue before, and maybe for some people it was.
Italian, though. So I can do like Italian, and I can do like a Russian, and I can do like a French.
Well, here's my argument to this whole thing, right? I often say that I'm from the States. I mean, I am. I was born there, and people, my conversations always go like this. People ask, where are you from? I say, oh, I'm from the U.S. Oh, where in the U.S.? Texas. And immediately, most of the time, 90% of the time, people say or try and imitate the southern accent of Texas. Now, I could choose to be offended by that, or I can be like, haha, okay, cool. Sometimes, yes, it's a bit cringeworthy, but I don't feel oppressed or... I don't feel like I've been discriminated against because someone thinks that the southern accent is funny. If you can't handle that, then there's so much more bigger problems in our world than worrying about a goddamn accent that someone did on stage that could or could not be offensive, because at the end of the day, all right, any joke, any topic, anything that we talk about on the stage could be perceived as offensive to someone, and there is no way that you cannot be offensive to anyone unless you talk about the weather. But then again, even if you talk about the weather and dare say, oh, there was a dark cloud, that may be perceived as racist because you said dark cloud. What are you trying to say? This wokeness, bullshit, censorship needs to stop. And by the way, it is articles and ideas like this that create censorship amongst us, where we feel as comedians we are not allowed to say anything, where we can't say anything, we can't voice an opinion, because the moment we do, we're either shunned, distanced from, or ridiculed for it. And that is censorship of the art and something that shouldn't be allowed.
Well, again,
goddamn fucker, right.
Here's the thing: it should never be up to look. People must choose, right? And this is the problem: is that cancel culture is popular. It's like TikTok videos. People get swooped into what is new and what is hip and what's the thing to do, right? Because most people don't have the time and ability to develop their own personalities beyond a certain point, right? So thereafter, it's easier just to go with the flow, because anything else is going to require me doing reading, expanding on my debating skills, developing my own interpersonal communication skills. So not being able to take offense when somebody says to my face, shoot the Boer, kill the Buddha, whatever the case is, I need to be able to stand there and go, oh, listen, and take it, because it's a debate I'm willing to have, right? Now, most people cannot do that because they haven't been given the tools and the wherewithal to develop their own mental and well, I don't know what it is, psychological abilities to be able to do that, because they technically, like I said, still immature teenagers that get triggered by bullshit.
Can I just
And I
quickly
stand by
comment
that.
on this as well? As Spiker Hunt says, some jokes are based on hurting others and is not a good therapy for narcissistic trait people. There is your classic limit with race jokes. Now, I agree that some jokes do come from stereotypes and can use hurtful words and stuff like that. But my point here is, number one, people who have this woke opinion, right? Whatever that is, Leon Schuster was racist or whatever, blah, blah, blah. You're allowed to have that opinion. You are allowed. If you feel offended by what Schuster did, then you're allowed to feel that way. What I'm saying is there's also the other side of the coin where people don't feel offended. Now, why do you feel the need to tell other people who don't feel offended that they should be offended? That doesn't make sense. That's number one. Number two, all right? It is up to the people, not fellow. I don't perform as a comedian for my comedians. All right, I don't perform for Vanna. I don't perform for Peter. I don't perform for Mikhail. I perform for you,
Because
the viewer.
most comedians don't think other comedians are funny. Just honestly,
Exactly.
most of us don't think each other funny.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I
Fact.
perform for my audience, and my audience determines what is acceptable and what is not. That is it. So if a comedian, which by the way, there have been a few comedians who have said some really terrible things over the lockdown, and they have not necessarily been
You mean
canceled.
shitty jokes?
Yeah, shitty jokes. You know what I'm talking about. So they have lost followers and people won't go to their shows. That's how you show your disapproval. That's how the audience shows their disapproval. Just like when Leon Schuster was canceled by Showmax, what happened? A lot of people canceled their subscription with Showmax, showing their outrage. And that's how artists or arts should be judged. If you don't like a painting, don't buy it. If you don't like a show, don't go to it. It's as simple as that.
If you don't like anal,
Go.
don't do it.
Thing is, Joe, I'm glad you referenced that, because for those not watching that haven't read the article, he does point out, and the point he makes valid. Comedians, and I think that by extension is why also this woke and cancel culture is affecting comedians in a way it shouldn't. Comedians and their material and how they come across should be judged by the audience and the audience alone. We do not do stand-up comedy to impress our fellow comedian. We should not look for justification from other comedians. The audience determines that. Just
It's
as
kind of funny though. No, but it's kind of funny though, because most comedians, like when you start, they'll say, right, don't take advice from other comedians, like let the audience tell you what's funny, and then you go on stage and you do the thing, and then you come off and they go, you know what, if you do this, that would be a funnier and this, but you just said don't listen to other comedians.
Yeah, that's a common thing.
Exactly. So if I told a joke that's racist, transphobic, homophobic, sexist, anti-Semitic, the audience will judge in the future based on their outrage not to come view me again. And I think
you're definitely not getting any bar mitzvah gigs. I can fucking guarantee
exactly. Okay, on the other hand, I'm half German. I most likely won't in any case. But
I did a gig like at the Jewish Center for like a whole bunch of things, and it was cool,
It was informative.
It was my surname.
Was there a stand-up comedian there?
Wait.
The audience.
I will say this.
We should. It's the one case. Okay, not the one case. It's the case where with the arts, it is truly being judged by your peers, and in this case, peers aren't your fellow comedians. The people in the audience are your peers. They will judge whether you are good or not.
Yeah.
And a lot of these comedians that are taking the aggressive stance when it comes to being cancel culture and wokeness, how dare they speak on behalf of other comedians, and how dare they speak on behalf of the audience? Yes, I agree that if I'm at a gig and a fellow comedian tells a joke that is socially uncouth, yes, I should use the opportunity to discuss that with that person and hopefully educate them so they will change their behavior. Yes, that is a moral stance that we should take.
Or if you drop your set afterwards, you just tear him a brand new arsehole live on the stage. That's also a fun way of doing it.
That's
Because
also one way of doing it.
It's tongue in cheek or fist. I mean, like whatever. You kind of do what works.
But that's the way it should be done. But you climbing on your soapbox, your moral pedestal that you have chosen for yourself, which you have picked out for yourself, and you have chosen the place to put it, to lambast someone because it strengthens your narrative. That's selfish. That is absolutely selfish and self-centered. And once again, you are degrading comedians that have used humor to break the social barriers and racial barriers because of your actions.
I also want to
That's
say,
not fair.
sorry, I also want to say, I think I want to make this point very clear. Again, if you are an artist that believes that doing black scent and all this stuff is offensive, blackface is offensive, blah, 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 all the things that are coming out now, it is your right as an artist to not do it. It is your right. But you don't have the right to tell another artist, oh, you're not allowed to do that. Because I'm not allowed to tell you, oh no, but you can do it. You can do it. Don't worry about it. Don't. If it is your choice not to do it, then don't do it. It's fine. You don't have to do it ever in your career. But don't dare dictate me and my content. Because again, it's the audience that decides. And the audience is enjoying what I'm doing. Who are you to come in and say like, hey, wait, guys, no, this is racist. No, you are not the.
And
no
same as
one
that other guy.
is bigger than
And
comedy.
that fucked up ass accent. That accent was unacceptable.
Who's that?
Thing is-
Who's that chap that everyone
I
took
need to
offense
take
to
this.
recently on the
I just
comedy
spoke on
group?
camera.
Kevin Frazier.
The guy that Kevin Frazier, you know? And it's I kind of find it ridiculous, right? Because this guy he's literally doing his own thing. I haven't even seen him getting involved with any of the other kind of. Yeah, absolutely. You know, and here's all these guys just having like, and I'm like, well, he's popular, he's doing his thing, people seem to like him, so you kind of, sure, have an opinion, but basically
Why send the
fuck
mob
off.
after him?
Yeah,
Hold on.
why send the mob after him? You know?
Peter just left to go look for better material, it seems.
Oh shit, he's going to be gone for a long time. Come back next week.
Next week. No, but Joe, I want to add a little caveat that strengthens what you said. Yes, I know I've come across as a bit drastic, and because it's a passionate thing. I think we all love we all love comedy, and I think that people that are more
I've come across as a bit drastic. Jesus.
yes understatement of the month.
Cheers.
If yes, in full agreement, if a comedian does feel offended by another comedian, if they feel it was uncouth, if they feel that it did more harm than good, they may be offended and they may voice it. And I do feel that if you truly show solidarity for something in the right way, you should voice it. So if, for example, just to get the point across, if Peter drops a foul murders joke, for example, apart from the fact that the audience will judge whether it was good or not, I do feel as a comedian I should, because I show solidarity and I've not moved away from what being woke should be, that solidarity, what it should be. Yes, I think I should approach him and discuss it with him and go, what you said, yes, it was funny, but take into account there are people in the audience that might take offense. But I will firstly not coach Peter on either having to change that joke or to remove that joke, because that's not my place. And more importantly, and we've just mentioned it, I have no right to go onto social media and create an angry flash mob and go and lynch that comedian for his actions, because once again it comes back to the audience will judge whether that should happen. I don't. I can see. I'm allowed to see a problem.
And it has happened to some comics that have done things which have been very triggering for people, and they've largely been like the public goes for them, and it's so if you make statements which are salacious and triggering, you have to stand by them. And then you have to be able to take the flack that comes your way for them. Right? Now, some of that outrage, maybe because other people incite it due to cancel culture, right? But I think often, maybe perhaps just in comedy. Comedy is one of those things where the people that follow comedy, specifically that enjoy comedy, they will be very quick to decide whether or not somebody is funny. We've all been in audiences, where you see some comics go on and they do a set, and you can literally see the audience like kind of looking at each other, going like, "What the fuck?" So, you don't even need to say anything. That guy knows he's not funny. The audience knows he's not funny. And the response,
I just had to say, you look like the gentlest Dr. Evil ever right now. The cat on your lap.
Yeah, look,
spitting philosophy. You
Yeah.
cannot take over the world with that kind of thinking.
Well, see, this is the thing: is you make people believe that you're very gentle and kind. It's like I say, I'll have a tear running down my cheek as I slit your throat. This is a sad day.
Sinister as shit.
All right, so very quickly, I just want to say I want to end this at an hour and a half. It's almost already an hour and a half, and once again, it has definitely been a very interesting and insightful and awesome discussion. So in 8 minutes, I would like to end it. I don't know how you guys feel. Should we have another one of this? Is there more to talk about? I don't know.
Let's keep going, because I'm look. Thank you for asking, because I was going to ask you if we could do this again, because Kaneki has some more shit to say.
So, look,
and I want to see more of that cat. I want to see more of Dr. E.
Look, Peter is already called Kyle. Technically, we know Peter is a white English dude. I think by the time Mikhail is finished with him, his name is going to be Gerard Sarwanga.
There we go.
Go on.
I do not
appreciate this misrepresentation of my heritage.
Peter, when I'm done with you, your dream car will be a Toyota Hilux.
He's already wearing the rugby shirt, so you're halfway there.
Bastard! I'm an electric car driving son of a bitch. It's global warming, innit? Global warming.
You see, apparently Peter's allowed to do
cans.
that.
Yeah.
Those are not beer cans. Those are
apparently Peter's from North London or something.
Excuse me.
No, he's from Kenya. He's been drinking too many St. George's.
Oh
no.
All right.
Take over, Joe.
All right. So I think we covered a lot. We covered a lot in this one. I do. Okay, so we have 6 minutes left. What about? Let me get your guys' opinion on this. All right. Do you feel that because of cancel culture and wokeness, that there is, you guys personally now, have any of you been affected by feeling that you cannot produce the content that you actually want to, and that you cannot voice opinions that you actually want to? Do you find yourself having to think and second guess everything that you put out there and everything that you say on public platforms? Yes or no?
Question.
No.
Go ahead and answer quick.
That's the short answer. No.
No, for me, it's actually quite the opposite. I actually kind of now know where to find the funny, because the comedians that inspired me to do stand-up, even comedians for me are more than just stand-up comedians. They are the people that introduced me to a way of thinking that led me to think the way I do. Sort of very, you got to be an individual, cultivate your own thoughts, and nurture your own morality, and rather than prescribing willy-nilly without any reason, rationality.
Eat your own path. Eat your own path. Walk your own. It's that thing of just be your own human.
Okay, let me
exactly. And so just to finish off the question, I feel as though now is the time for comedians of a voice, and as I mentioned earlier, truth to power. Comedians always punch up.
Yes.
To authority. Well, if you're woke and you are seeking power, well, the comedian is going to be there going, "Oh, you want to get strong, but you are ridiculous." And I've got the jokes, and I've got Joe Emilio to make fun of. So yeah, I got a career.
It's way easier target than Joe. I mean, you just have to look at our entire NEC. Pretty much the whole parliament for the most part.
That's true.
There's some stiff competition.
It's a clown car, right?
They have live television broadcasts, for parliamentary sessions. We can't compete with that kind of shit. Yeah, it's just unfair footage. It's just unfair advantage. I think we should.
Real material.
I think we should actually get a whole bunch of comics and then ask if we could have the parliamentary floor for like a day or two. See if we can crack some high numbers.
Nah, I don't think it will be as entertaining.
I would go to prison so quickly. Joe, to answer the question, I don't want to be that guy, but I'm going to be that guy. It's a yes and no answer. And the no answer hints very much at what Peter said. On the yes half, because of my background, I am aware of certain topics that from day one, since you and I met each other in 2013 until now, in the past 7 years of doing stand-up, there are topics that I have been aware of that I shouldn't touch. There are certain things on stage that I should not touch, because it doesn't matter how well the joke is formulated, it will 9 out of 10 times end badly. So in that regard, yes. But as Peter hinted at, I'm also willing to say no. But because of that, I found a different path to being funny. I've adapted, and hopefully in the future I'll continue growing and keep on doing it better, where, okay, I can't use these topics. Let me go actually and find topics. Let me make the effort to find jokes and write them and be good at them. So that's why it's a yes and a no. So it is unfortunate. It's a bit of both sides. There is, strange enough, a slight positive to come from that, because I was forced to grow as a comedian by having to try something different. I think the sadness is the fact that I had to be forced. Someone else forced me, as a grouping forced me to do it. Whereas I would have.
Want this shit. I try to get out, but they keep putting me back.
No, it's not. It's not.
I didn't want this life. Oh,
it's not.
The thug life just kills me.
Like the guy just wants to make race. We can't make race humor. Like as two white dudes, we can't make race. And back in the day, the only race joke that I had was like, I'd come on stage and says, I don't do race comedy, because obviously I'm a white, like a white dude. I even go as far as like I don't mix like my washing. I don't even separate them into like white, dark this. That's the extent of my race. Because that's a safe race joke. That's a safe race joke. Beyond that, you can't fucking do a thing.
Yeah,
although now. I think nowadays it's for me to come back is I say no, because I look at where is power being abused, and whenever somebody abuses power, For me, they're fair game. Now, irrespective if you're a movement that have good intentions, but if you are abusing your position in society to bully other people into submitting to your narrative, you're a fucking target. And I don't give a fuck, man. And I'm going to go after you with everything I got. Because your message alone should be enough to convince people, not the peer pressure.
Exactly. Your message's got to stand up for yourself.
Yeah, but my point here is like when you do stand up for yourself and stuff like, you still get backlash. You still get people attempting to cancel you, and you do get shunned by some of your fellow peers.
You just gotta stand brave.
Which is what I'm talking about. Some of the comedians, they're afraid of that. They're afraid. Like you've decided, I've decided, and I think Mikhail and I have decided, and Peter have decided. You know, we're gonna voice our opinion. We're going to say our thing. You know, and we understand the consequences that might happen. We've decided to do that. So no, we're not being censored to a certain degree. But there are other artists out there that may want to say what we say, agree with what we say, but they don't want to be outspoken about it because they know, shit, we've seen what happens with these guys. I don't want to be, I'm too scared or whatever the case may be.
Yes. We are not.
Yeah, and look, I think most people are not unreasonable, right? I think most people are fairly reasonable human beings. So I think we can all agree that most of us, you know, we will never agree on all things. It is, I think, you know, and this is why the socialist, you know, and group thinking always fails, is because humans like the ability to have freedom of choice, you know, and unless people choose out of their own free will, like a socialist type utopia, it's never going to happen. Yeah. It's just not going to happen.
And the thing is, and what Vander says comes back to why I said yes, and that's the whole problem, and we've discussed it in very good depth tonight with regards to the arts and what cancel culture does. I would have liked to have been afforded the opportunity to grow and to realize that the jokes about race are low-hanging fruit. I want to better myself based on my own retrospection. But cancel culture and the arts as a whole, and for us as comedians, we aren't afforded that opportunity. Yeah. We are forced, where we had the choice, we no longer are afforded that.
Yeah.
And that's why I come back to the extreme people in those movements are taking away more rights with regards to thinking than what they are advocating. And that's the sad thing.
Yeah.
I wanted myself to learn that, okay, I've done a Nelson Mandela accent. It went down reasonably well. Yeah.
Who
hasn't? Right. For example, but I would like to do, for example, I would like to do it on stage, and if it works, then if it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I want to be afforded that opportunity to learn that. But
Nelson Mandela ordering craft beer. That's hilarious. Go.
But there's nothing wrong with it. Like, what's wrong with imitating a president of your country? You know what I mean? Just because he happens.
But this is what I'm talking about with the censorship. You see?
I'm sorry, Mikhail. But continue, Mikhail. You were making a point. I apologize.
No, it's fine.
I had to throw a joke in. I'm sorry.
No, it's not. Yeah. We're here to debate and take the piss and hopefully upset someone.
I was trying to upset you. But yeah, you're such a fucking.
He's not taking the bait.
I'm not taking the bait.
I think you upset the cat.
I wanted to interrupt. I have a dream speech.
I've gone enough fishing. I know what to cast and what not to cast. So yeah, that's the great sadness about cancel culture and the arts, and essentially that's what censorship does, and that's what cancel culture does, is taking away the right to choose what morality you want to subscribe to.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is, by doing that, you are by extension acting as a fascist, which is scary. But obviously that doesn't match the narrative that is being put out there.
Yeah. And on that note, we'll leave it there. We have gone way over time.
Only 4 minutes.
And I still want people to watch this.
Let's end on your being
But
a
mic drop. So I do want to continue this conversation. I feel like there's still a lot more to be spoke. So we'll have a part 3, and we'll see where it goes. And maybe we'll be able to take a lot more comments and questions from the audience. I just quickly want to go over some of what they said very recently when we asked if we should do another part to this. Charmaine said yes, please. There was Get You Online Lynn who also said yes, please. More jokes. Peter is awesome. So you got a fan, Peter.
His first one.
We also have. She also said we need comedians, and again, she was asking, so what's stopping you? That was when Mikhail was saying that you wanted to do the accent, and then Charmaine now is saying thanks, guys, and with applause and stuff like that. So. We've had a lot of comments. Thank you all so much for watching. I know not all of you stayed with us. That's fine. There we go. Mr. Punisher saying, thanks, guys. Always good listening to you. Look forward to part 3. All right, so let's do a part 3. We'll see where it goes. Maybe we'll touch a bit again on arts, woke culture and arts, but there's a lot to talk about with this topic, and I'm enjoying this conversation with the 3 of you. Thank you guys so much for being on the show. For those of you who are watching, thank you. Please like this video. Please share. We need more people to know about what we're talking about, and hopefully it inspires other performers
tell
that
them
may.
it's worth to watch the whole thing.
Yes.
I know it sounds silly, but it's, I don't know, is it worth watching the whole thing?
I think so. It's thought provoking.
Should we make a highlights reel?
I will cut a bit of it.
Some people who watch this afterwards. If you watch this afterwards, make a comment.
Yes, please
Just
comment.
Let Joe know if you watched this after the live show.
No. I'll see the comments and I'll bring it up at the next. If there's anything interesting, I'll bring it up in the next show as well. Yeah. So. Thank you guys, everyone that's watched. Thank you guys so much. Please subscribe. Please give a like. Please also read my article about my opinion about cancel culture. It is in the description below. Please share it if you agree with it and if you like it. Once again, Vanner, Peter, Mikhail, thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. This has been extremely awesome. Is there anything you guys want to say? Quickly.
Yeah, if you didn't like what we did, share it to the people that you don't like and tell them this is fantastic.
I agree with that. Last thing I will say is that use your heart to love, but your brain for everything else.
And Mikhail?
I hope I pissed off enough people.
All right. Get You Online Lynn really wants me to say we need comedians, and because she said, please read my previous comments. Comedians should understand that we need you. You take our minds off of our challenges, life hardships. Lockdown has produced a lot new channels on YouTube. Yes, I think that's the comment she wanted me to.
Yeah, that's true. I'm thinking about starting my own one too.
Yeah, there you go. And you have Lynn that will definitely subscribe.
Shooting the shit with Kyle.
Shooting the shit with Kyle.
Kyle in the Matrix.
Yes!
I've got a better one. I've got Gerard Gesels.
There we go.
Oh shit. Oh shit.
If you don't get on that, I'm telling you, you have a missed opportunity. If you go as Gerard Gesels and you do Afrikaans style dances in that getup, my man, you will get so many Buddha loving shit. You know, you will have the whole of the Free State like singing your. I mean, you'll get treated like a king, my man. You know what I mean? You'll get the best.
Values for life.
Yeah, you'll get the best Buddha horse and pup that you can imagine.
Values for life. Hashtag it.
Felices. All
right.
Go.
Cool. Good night, everyone. We'll see you at the next one. See you next week. Cheers.
Good night.
Yeah.